I broke a gear, broke it, snapped it. Okay. If you've never done something like this where you just go all out and wear the thing that you made and have a little fun with it, there's just no better feeling. Like, and it was like my red carpet moment. She's like, excuse me, what are you wearing? It's like, I made it. I made it. Hi, I made it. This is my messy dressy. I made it.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode today. I am so excited to share with you my very clearly finished object, as well as a new cast on, the only whip that I have been working on in addition to that, and catch up as well as wrap up on all things Stash Bust Spring. So I don't think that we should dilly-dally today. We should just go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to start with the finished object and move into my whips, and I will save all of the Stash Bust Spring information for the end, and I will do my best to remember to also put in a timestamp either in the pinned comment or in the description box so that you can refer to that as needed. But just in case, I do want to say a big thank you to everyone who has participated in this knit along. It has been incredibly just cool and inspiring to see all of the projects that have come out of Stash Bust Spring and the way in which everyone has been using their stash and being more mindful about their stash and showing a little bit more attention to their stash. That was the whole point of the knit along. And I'm just so glad that that resonated with other people and that you guys were all able to make some really amazing things with yarn that you already had. So thank you for participating. Congratulations to our many winners. As of this very moment that I am sitting here filming, I have not yet picked the winners. I'm actually going to be doing that right after filming this podcast. However, there are going to be a total of 11 winners. I've done my best to kind of spread the wealth, and I'm just really, like I said, appreciative, grateful. Thank you so much for those of you who have made this possible by participating, and especially to those of you who have made it possible by contributing to the prizes. So like I said, that's all going to be at the end of the video. Let's maybe try this again. Let's go ahead and dive on into the finished object. So as you can see, I am here wearing my messy dressy. This was my final project of Stash Bust Spring. The blue yarn that you see here was actually yarn from two different cones that I had thrifted in the same shopping experience some time ago last year. And when we decided to go to this Argentina soccer game that we wound up going to over the past week, I remembered that I had this blue yarn in my stash that I thought would be perfect to use to make something a little bit, celebratory and exciting, maybe a little bit silly just because of the amount of work I put into it versus the time that it was worn. However, I would not change a thing. I'm so glad that I did this. I am so happy with how it came out. If you have not yet seen it, I'm wearing a tank top underneath here right now so we could try something else on later. But I crocheted all of these individual granny squares and sewed them using a zigzag stitch to each other to create these long stripes, then utilizing little triangles, so little half granny squares. That is how I did a lot of the shaping that you see. And then I finished out the neck and the armholes with some knit ribbing, a little bit of short row shaping to create like a tapering that kind of comes down under the arms here. But this wound up fitting so perfectly. Now, when we spoke last week, I usually try to film actually sometime between Tuesday and Thursday to then post on Saturday. And the schedule over the past couple of weeks, it's just worked out that it's been easiest for me to film and edit on Friday. So today is Friday. Last week I filmed on Friday. It's a little more chaotic, but it gets the job done. So you guys had all seen on Friday that I was done sewing everything, knitting the edging, and there were just a few more things that had to be done. Number one, I had to hem the dress because I actually made it a little bit too long. So I'll tell you how I did that. I also was planning to add all of the appliques, which you could see that I did wind up going for all of the gold because why the heck not? And then the last finishing touch was the numbers. I have the Messi name on the back of this. I'm sure that I will have posted photos by now, but I had all of those things to do from filming Friday until game day, which was Tuesday. Now, the game was late in the day on Tuesday, so I essentially had a bit of Saturday and Sunday, as well as the full day Monday, and then like a little bit of Tuesday to finish things up. First things first was I hemmed the dress. I did do that by running the bottom seam through my serger, and I did test it out on a couple of scrap squares, and it went okay. If I was planning to wear this dress like every day, I probably wouldn't do that. And then it actually came out kind of even worse when I actually did it on the bottom of the dress. Basically, what I realized was that it was just so difficult with the thickness of the fabric through the serger to keep a really steady, straight line. And then also just the way that things were sewn up to be able to see the line was a little bit tricky. And so there were a few spots where I was essentially trying to serge the the holes in the corners of the granny square fabric. And so there was like nothing for it to actually do there. So it wasn't 100% successful. And I do think you could see in the photos that the bottom hem is it could be better, but I accepted it for what it was. It's going to be by my ankles. It doesn't really matter. And I'm not planning to wear it every day. So the wear and tear isn't exactly going to be as much of a concern as it would be for a more like everyday garment. So I had done that and then gone back in with a single crochet around the bottom hem, which I kind of tried to do around the serged edge to kind of wrap that in and conceal it. It looks pretty sloppy, but again, we accepted it. Now, the other thing that I had to do, which I forgot to mention, was I still had all of my ends to figure out. My plan was to simply use a little Fabri-Tac and glue those little babies down and snip them. I thought that was going to take like an hour tops. That literally took the whole weekend because the glue was just not drying for some reason. And so I went through on the back side of the fabric and just tapped a little bit of glue onto all of the ends. I figured I'd let it sit for about a half hour and then go back and snip them. Hours. It took hours for that to dry. I don't know why. But by the time I went through every single end on this dress and snipped those tails off and the drying time in between, that was the full weekend. So at that point, I had Monday to do all of the iron-on work, which I wasn't concerned about. I figured that would be the quickest part. And then I was thrown a curveball. I had said that I was going to be using my Cricut machine to cut out the numbers, the letters, and iron on all of those bits. But I'd be utilizing my Cricut to make those like decals, basically. And I got the Cricut set up on Monday, all set to do this, and it broke. If you don't know what a Cricut is, it's basically a machine that you utilize a computer system to tell it what images to cut out. It's very simplified, but I basically put in the image of the numbers and it runs through this machine, which has a little blade that through the computer, it tells it exactly how to cut out that number. in order for the machine to work, it kind of works with like a roller system. And so there's a roller inside of the machine that kind of like like sucks it through. And in order for it to do that, it utilizes these two rubber rollers. Now, the rubber rollers, I've had this machine for a few years now. Apparently, they were at the end of their lifespan. And one of them got like sucked up into the machine. So when I was running the cutting mat through, it all just shifted and the machine started flashing red lights and making horrible sounds. And it was not working. This was Monday afternoon. And I needed the dress to be done, ready to go in 24 hours at that point. So we went to Mr. Bezos. We went and we said, "Excuse me, Mr. Bezos, can you help me solve this problem?" And fortunately, he could. So you could buy these little roller things to replace on Amazon. And Amazon has this thing where you could do overnight delivery and have it delivered to your house for 7 a.m. the next day. So that's what we did. Now, that was all I could do that day was order the new part and sit around and wait and hope it got here in time for me to replace it, cut the thing out, iron it on, and then leave for the game on Tuesday. Which, prior to that, I was so excited because I was so ahead of schedule this whole time. And then here I was the day of the game trying to figure this out. The part got here at 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning, and I got straight to work. I did not miss a beat. What I didn't know is that in order to replace these parts, I legitimately had to disassemble like the entire Cricut machine. And I'm a crafty girl. I enjoy myself a good hobby. I enjoy myself a good little rabbit hole. But there's two things that I have zero interest in. One of them is cars. I have no interest in learning the mechanics of a car. I just don't. It's not my thing. The other is little small part electronics and little teeny tiny screws inside of little itty bitty compartments of machines next to motors with gears. And that is what I was doing on Tuesday morning for an hour and a half, was just disassembling the machine. And all of this is just like, hopefully it works when it's done. There's no concrete guarantee. I'm following a YouTube video of someone who like also thinks that they know what they're doing. So there I was Tuesday morning taking apart the whole Cricut. I broke a gear, broke it, snapped it. Okay. Then I had to freeze the metal component that holds the rollers, and I had to put the rollers in boiling water, and all of this before 9 a.m. Figured it out. Okay, great. There's no video to tell you how to put that thing back together. So that was on my own, just trying to figure that part out. That was another hour and a half, was putting it back together. So by the time all of this happened, it's noon on Tuesday, and we have hours before we need to leave to go to this game. And I don't even know that the Cricut's gonna work. I broke a part. Like, I literally broke a gear. And somehow, this thing worked. It cut all the pieces out. Lickety split. Thank goodness for the Cricut. I was so pleased with myself for figuring out how to make this replacement and fix this machine just in the nick of time. However, ironing on all of the parts took a long time. I think if you're going to iron on anything to a crochet piece, cotton in particular, you might want to go through with like a lint roller first, because what I found is that ironing the parts on, they were kind of just sticking to that top layer of the yarn, of the fabric. And when I was trying to then like peel away the transfer stuff, it didn't want to do it. So this took hours, hours, hours. But I did it. I made it. We got there. I tried to recreate my look here today a little bit. I did my hair a little kind of festive. Um, and we literally got to our seats in the stadium at 8:59 for a game that started at 9 p.m. The whole way to our seats was spent with people stopping and complimenting my dress. And I gotta tell you, if you've never done something like this where you just go all out and wear the thing that you made and have a little fun with it, there's just no better feeling than walking into a place. I mean, there's 87,000 people in this stadium, and I'm just one of them. And people are stopping and saying, "Oh my gosh, I love your dress." Every few feet, this was happening. People asked to take photos with me. They asked for photos of the dress. Multiple people said, "Oh, my mother used to crochet and oh my gosh, she'll love that. Can I send her a photo?" I'm like, "Of course." We got stopped by this like social media reporter outside, and it was like my red carpet moment. She's like, "Excuse me, what are you wearing?" It's like, "I made it. I made it. Hi, I made it. This is my messy dressy. I made it." It was just really cool. It was really exciting. But I have to tell you that my favorite part was when we got to our seats, there was a family sitting in front of us, and there was this little girl. She had to have been about 6 or 7 years old. And her mom had spoke to me at halftime and asked me about the dress. And she's one of the ones who said that, her mom used to crochet and could she send her a photo, of course. And a little bit later, this little girl turned around. She's like, "Excuse me, excuse me." I was like, "Yes." And she said, "You made that?" I was like, "I did. I did make that." And then she asked me, "Did you make any mistakes?" And I said, "Yes. Yes, I did." And I showed her, I said, "You want to see my mistakes?" I said, "Look here. There's this part right here where there's a funny part sticking out and this might unravel. And over here, I actually caught this part where there was a hole between the squares. So that was a mistake." And I said, "Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes, but what's really cool is that as a whole, you don't really notice them. And it's cool that the mistakes are there because that's how you know that I made it and that it's mine." And I was like, "This is just so cool." This little girl who was so curious about it. And I don't think she watched a minute of the game because I was dodging eye contact with her the whole time, but she was just looking at the dress and she'd ask, "How long did it take you a really long time?" I was like, "It kind of did." um, but it was just, I don't know, it was very cool. I was very proud of it. We had more people stop us on the way out than they did on the way in, just asking about it. And it wore so well the whole night. Unfortunately, because we did get there a little bit late, I didn't get a ton of like really good photos of it. We got some just when we could, but I am so glad I did it. I'm so happy with how it came out. I think that it fits perfectly. I ironed it beforehand. I gave it a little steam and just a little iron, and that was plenty for it to just relax. And I'm really glad that I hemmed it. I think that the length wound up being perfect. And yeah, I'm really just thrilled with how it came out and that I was able to use this blue yarn that I actually had no intention of using. So it was cool all around. And I love that you guys are loving it too. So that is the finished object for the week. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. I feel like it was such a whirlwind of an experience that I'm still trying to comprehend all that has happened. But yes, I finished it literally just in time. And it was an interesting road leading up to it. But yes, we had a really great time at the game. Loved wearing the dress. Other people loved the dress, which doesn't matter. I would have been just as happy having worn it if no one said anything. But the fact that multiple people stopped. It was cool. It was really, really cool. So that is my finished object, the messy dressy. And I think that from here, we should talk a little bit about my whips. So I really did not touch the sand cardigan over the past week. I really wanted the cardigan to be done by now. And so I figured I would just keep chugging along and getting it done. It has the button bands left to do and the pockets and finishing the sleeves. And someone commented and said, "You're not going to wear that in the foreseeable future. So don't stress to get it done." I thought, you know what? You're right. It's not going into hibernation by any means. I'm simply going to work on it when the situation calls for it. I'm keeping it out. I'm keeping it present so that it doesn't just, get lost in the back of my mind. But it is summer and there are other projects that I want to be working on that I can wear or just work on more comfortably before then. So I'm going to set a goal of having it done by the end of the summer still. However, there's going to be weeks where it gets worked on and others when it doesn't. And this week was just so dedicated to other things that it didn't happen. So we're just going to mention the sand cardigan as needed. But I think it's also just finally time we talk about some new projects. It's feeling a little stale lately. So at this point, I do want to talk a little bit about my whip, the Sailor Swift top by Veronica Lindbergh of Kutova Kika. I am knitting this tank top out of Knitting for Olive Merino, extra fine merino, in the colorways brown nougat and cream. This yarn is left over from a project I had done earlier this year, for which the yarn was gifted by Unit Toronto. So it was not gifted for this project, however, it was gifted yarn. I'm knitting this project in a size extra large and I am using 3mm needles. I have yet to try this on. I did not gauge swatch. This was just something that I cast on in a time of need. And it has been my reliable, mindless knitting. So this is what we have so far. I do feel like it's made quite a bit of progress in the past week. I actually totally forgot to put a progress keeper on it the last time we spoke. So I will try to make that a priority to do today. I'm like looking around to see if there's one here. There's not. So I will try to remember to put a progress keeper on this week. But here we have it. Now, I have been working on this on these this little teeny tiny cable. So super scrunched up on the cables. That being said, it is supposed to have she says the different ways that you could kind of choose your fit in the pattern, but I am knitting mine with an intended negative ease to just 0 ease. So I'm curious to see how this is going to fit, which is why I figured today we could try it on. I'm also a little bit surprised because I feel like I've barely made a dent in my yarn. I am holding this in my Black Pearl Magic drawstring bag. This has become an instant favorite of mine, but the reason I'm loving it right now, this was gifted from Shayla of Black Pearl Magic. It has these large pockets on the inside. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that. And I've actually been putting my 2 balls of yarn inside of those pockets. They fit perfectly. And it's helped to keep everything contained and keeping it from getting tangled while I then also have the project inside the bag. So I am loving this for that. That being said, I used up a little scrap that I had of the cream. And since then I've tapped into a full ball and it's barely noticeable that I've used anything. And the brown nougat, I'm pretty sure I've been using the same ball since the beginning. I could be wrong, but I just know that I haven't used a ton of yarn yet. And we're getting really close, I think, to the middle of the body. So far, this really has not used a lot of yarn at all, which is awesome if this fits. So why don't we actually just go ahead and try it on because otherwise maybe all this was for nothing anyway. In order to try it on, we're going to throw this on some try it on tubing, which I already had prepared today. So let's go ahead and start our favorite segment over here that we haven't done in a little bit. Try it on tubing and chat. It's always such a good feeling. While I am moving this over, I figured, so I feel like for weeks now, I have been saying that I'm going to be doing a summer knitting plans video, and I have every intention of creating that video. I'm a bridal hairstylist. It's a busy season, so it's just taking a little bit of time. But also, I have struggled so much with coming up with summer knitting plans, and I don't just make the summer knitting plans or the seasonal knitting plans for the sake of a video. It really is, I found, helpful to just sort through my thoughts. But the issue that I've been having is that I put so much thought and effort and time and just like really felt like I nailed my spring knitting plans that I had made this year, all for it to sort of just not work. When I really felt like this is it. I finally figured out how I'm going to make my knitting plans for each season. And I wound up finding that I kind of picked too many not really complex projects, but just more mindful projects and not enough mindless projects, and that balance wasn't there. And I think I found it a little bit discouraging that after all of that time and effort of just getting my thoughts organized and really feeling like I had done it in such a good way, it didn't work out. So it's been taking me a little bit longer to find a balance of what I'm interested in knitting, but also what I have the capacity to knit. Does anyone else feel that way? If it were up to me and I just had unlimited brain space for knitting, I'd probably almost always be working on textured knits or lace knits or things that look really intricate and beautiful because I'm so attracted to those things. But the reality is that I don't have unlimited brain capacity. And certain times of year, it's just other things are taking up that space. So if I want to be knitting, I have to find some balance of things that are enjoyable and interesting to look at and things that are enjoyable and mindless to work on. And so I've been trying to find that balance with my summer knitting plans. Now, as I'm filming this, actually, there is a yarn shop in Mount Kisco, New York. It's called Pick Up Every Stitch. And you may know Kim and Jana of Knit Together with Kim and Jana. They had filmed their podcast out of there. And it's a great little yarn shop. Anyway, they had just posted on Instagram that they are having a sale off of Sandisgarn yarns, where everything is 40% off of in-stock Sandisgarn yarn, I think until the 4th of July or something like that. And I happen to be working around that area this weekend. So I thought maybe I've had a lot of summer knitting plans kind of on my mind, but didn't really have a direction of where I wanted to go with them. But also I don't have any summer knitting yarns. I now have plenty of winter and fall and wool. I have a lot of wool now, which is amazing, but I don't have any other than one tank top quantity of cotton. I don't have any other summer fibers. And so I thought I would try and pop in to Pick Up Every Stitch this weekend and maybe find something that will just kind of, I pulled all of the different things I was kind of interested in knitting, and I I'm hoping maybe if I go and just see the right color or the right fiber, it'll spark that excitement for some more summer knitting plans. Now, I also said I have a new cast on this week, which is it's not a summer project, but it was what I needed right now, and I'll tell you about it when I get to it. But I did utilize Instagram in my stories to sort of think out loud, and you guys were letting me know your thoughts on which of these sort of 4 patterns that I had been toying around with in my head, which ones you guys thought I should work on next. And I picked one of those, and that is my new cast on. And I'm really glad I made the choice that I did. Like I said, I'll tell you about that when I get to it. But I've just been feeling, I think because the sand cardigan has been on the needles for so long and the Messi dressy just took so much out of me, and they're just such large projects, things were feeling a little bit stale in my personal knitting life. I don't know how it's felt for you on the receiving end of this, but I was just ready for something new and exciting. And so I think I'm ready to embrace summer knitting and the quickness of all of that as well, just to add a little more variety into my knitting life. So that's what's going on there. It's always fun to do this little segment because I allow myself to ramble here more than I do the rest of the time. So while I am just getting this, what is happening here? I do find that this try-it-on tubing that I have, it's a little bit sticky, which is a good thing because it doesn't allow your stitches to just kind of fly away. But working with such a fine yarn, a little fingering weight yarn, it is a touch tricky to move the stitches and slide them across it. That's what I'm trying to do right now because we're still really bunched up. So let us try and do that. The jogless stripes in this that I've been doing, I have been following the instructions as per Kutova, Kika, Veronica Lindbergh, and the video for the pattern that so many of you kindly reminded me is there. Brain has been in a fog, busy season. So the first few that I had done, I felt like I couldn't really see a difference, but now having done quite a few more stripes, I do feel like it makes a difference. Now, that being said too, a lot of people have been sending me different ways of doing jogless stripes, and there's so many different ways. I'm eager to try out other methods. I've still just been sticking with the one that's in the pattern because it's consistent. So even if it's not the most jogless stripe, at least they do all look the same, and I feel like it might be a little bit more distracting for it to change halfway through. But there's so many different ways to do it out there. So thank you for all the recommendations. And I think I'm having like a little bit of a stripe moment. So I am certain that this will not be the last time I am knitting stripes, so that I'll be able to test out all of the other ways. All right, I think I'm going to just have to cut away to when this is actually moved over. This has gotten ridiculous. The stitches just don't want to spread out. I don't think I realized just how much fabric was hiding in that little small circumference needle. Wow, I'm so impressed with how large this is. I think having it on the smaller needles though actually made it really nice. I don't know, it made it seem really quick to just work in the round because it didn't feel like I was constantly pushing stitches over, so that I thought was actually really helpful. All right, we are officially on the try it on tubing, and let's go ahead and pop this on. We could end this segment. And yeah, let's see if this fits. Like I said, I'm wearing a tank top just so that I can make this easier to try this on. I'm like a little bit shocked right now how does this fit so well? When I didn't gauge swatch, what? Now, wow, that looks like really good, right? Doesn't it? I don't have any of the edging that's going to be going around the neck, around the armholes. So that's even going to just be cinched in a tiny bit, which I think really is all that it needs. It's just, I mean, the littlest bit of a lower kind of armhole than I would love. But overall, this is looking so good. I love the fit of the higher back and a little bit of a higher neck, but there's still room. So easy to get over my head as of right now. Of course, that will be different once I put the neckband on and everything, but wow, this is looking so, so good. Like I said, I do feel as though I'm about halfway through the body. I plan to knit this pretty long. So from where I am right now, I think I'd be happiest with the fit if from this point I knit about another 7 to 8 inches. I'll have to try it on as we get a little bit closer to that. But I could not be more happy with this. Wow. I will say, and I'm sure that you can kind of see when I do the close-ups, that the gauge that I'm getting right now is a little bit more open. This is a fingering weight yarn. It's very light fingering too, I think. And so especially around the points where it's stretching a little bit more, I do feel like I'm getting a little bit more of a gapiness. We'll see how that turns out with blocking. Hopefully the fiber will plump up just a little bit more to fill in those gaps. But I will even say right now, when I do block this, I won't be trying to stretch it. I'm very happy with the ease that I got. And I think, like I said, pretty much dead on the sort of no ease to maybe a little negative ease on this. I am absolutely loving the fit of this. I'm shocked. I did not say, however, this has been on the needles for about 19 days. And I think for that time, I mean, I'm just really thrilled with the way that this is looking right now. Trying it on is making me very eager to finish it. Very excited about that. Wow. I just love it. If you're looking at the stitch markers on the side here, I had been marking my increases because you do cast on from the back and then work some increases down to shape the back, then pick up for the front and do some shaping with increases for the front until you join under the arms in the round. And then it's just stocking it in the round. I'm also just carrying the yarns up the side, doing my best to not pull that first stitch too tight when I'm switching the color back and forth. I don't think that this gives the most seamless look. I feel like by carrying those yarns up, you get the littlest bit of a gap at the beginning of the round, but it avoids weaving in all the ends, and essentially it's under your arm. I don't really care too much. It doesn't bother me. I love this. I don't know about you. I'm absolutely loving it. I think I see another one of these in my future. Wow. Yeah, just so, so, so happy. So, so thrilled with that. That is the Sailor Swift top by Veronica Lindbergh. Been on the needles for about 19 days. Now, moving on to the final whip I'm going to talk to you about today. That is my new cast on that I'm so excited about. And it is called the Feel Good Cable Sweater by Anne Catherine Stoll. This sweater is meant to be this super oversized, very sort of loose braided cabled sweater. There's a V-neck. The sleeves are like mega wide. The whole thing is just oversized and relaxed. And for me, it just looked really beachy. It's knit up on 6mm needles. So really nice and chunky, quick knit, which is what I felt like I needed after all of these more just stagnant projects that I've had going on. I just really wanted that instant gratification of something chunky and quick and engaging enough, but not too much. And so these cables that are very spaced out. So most of the time you're just knitting and purling, and then once in a while you have to cable. That was exactly what I was craving. Now I'm knitting this in the size large, and I am using the Barocco Ultra Wool Chunky. This is superwash yarn in the color 43103. And you might remember that this is some of the yarn that I purchased at a local yarn shop when it was closing. So I got a great deal on this yarn, and I did purchase this specifically to knit this exact pattern. So this is one that I've been eyeing for a while now. As of today, this has been on my needles for 5 days, and let me show you the project that I've made so far, the progress that I've made so far. Isn't that something, huh? These are like the chunkiest needles I've worked on in a long time. This is also about the chunkiest needle that I'm comfortable working on. Anything bigger than this 6mm needle gets a little bit uncomfortable for me, but this is great right now. So you do start, it's a drop shoulder sweater. You start with the back and increase your way into that sort of trapezoid shape. You could see the cables, they're super loose. They're very like undone cables, and they are cabled the same way that you braid hair, which for me is just very exciting. Once the back is worked to the length told in the pattern, which I'm going to come back to, you go through and, as per usual, pick up for the fronts and start working the V-neck shaping. And this is where we're at right now. So at this point in the pattern, I have completed actually this left side for the part I'm supposed to be at right now, and I'm ready at the moment to pick up for the right side. Now, the back panel I actually haven't finished because I'm having a little bit of a dilemma. The pattern is written very clearly. It's like somewhere in between. I'm not crazy about the way that this pattern is written. I think it's a little bit confusing, and it's kind of wordy in all the places I feel like it doesn't have to be, and then not wordy enough in all of the places I wish it had a little bit more information. But one of the issues that I'm having is that on the back here, I was told to knit this until a certain row in the cable repeat. And that at that point, I was supposed to have 15 centimeters from the back edge. Someone's like cutting down a tree outside. What is happening? So I paused because I don't think that those two things are going to happen at the same time. I don't believe I'm going to hit 15 centimeters and the row in the cable chart that I'm supposed to at the same time. So I figured what I would do instead is go through and work the fronts and then kind of see how I can finagle things to make sure that it's going to work out in the end. But as of right now, it's a little bit iffy. Again, I didn't gauge swatch. I know. I also really was sort of in between sizes. The medium for me would have gotten me about the amount of ease that she suggests in the pattern. However, I actually started out by knitting the medium pattern and increased to the point I was told I was supposed to. And it just looked like it was not going to be as oversized as I wanted it to be. So I decided to keep going with the increases and work my way up to the large. Now, that being said too, I'm pretty sure that I don't have enough yarn for what's recommended for the large. I didn't gauge swatch, so I'm gambling a bit here. But I don't know. It felt worth it to me. We'll figure that out when we get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, I'm just enjoying such a quick process knit and enjoying those cables knit up. You do work an I-cord across the back of the neck, and then that's kind of how you start this left side. I'm curious to see how the right side is going to work up too, and then kind of just where things are going to go from there. So this was 5 days of work. not even 5 days of work, just 5 days on the needles and a bit of work in there, and it's just working up really quickly. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go. I will say on the yarn, I don't have a ton of experience working with superwash yarn, and for me, this one in particular gives me acrylic vibes. I think that you could pass me a ball of this and acrylic with my eyes closed, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I don't know if anyone else feels that way about superwash yarns. I don't know if it's this one specifically. I'm not sure if it's because it's a chunkier fiber with that superwash treatment. I'm not really sure, but I'm not crazy about the feeling of it. It has a little bit of that squeak factor that I'm not crazy about either. However, for the price that I got it for, I really loved the color, and it was that chunky yarn that I needed for this project. So I'm just happy to be working on it, to be honest. I'm happy to be here. So this is the newest project. We'll see what goes on with this over the next couple weeks. But right now I'm just really happy to be having something. This is ticking all of my boxes at the moment. And this was one that I had asked you guys on Instagram if I should cast it on. And this was actually the one that got the least amount of votes to cast on next. But it checked the most boxes for me as far as engaging enough without being too engaging, quick enough that I'd feel satisfied with it, and still relevant to the season right now, because I think this will be the perfect beach sweater. I love it right now. But I'm also gambling a lot because I have no idea if this is actually going to work out. Anyway, that is the Feel Good Cable Sweater, all one word, by Anne Catherine Stoll on the needles for 5 days. With that, we have reached the end of WIP's finished objects, new cast-ons. I'm feeling a bit reinvigorated over here in the way of projects, and I think that this is my note to you, that if you have a project that you feel like has just been hanging out on the needles for too long and you've been waiting to cast on something new till it's done, maybe take a moment to consider all of the options there, because really there's no point in me devoting all of this time to my sand cardigan for the next few weeks and then missing out on all of the fun summer knits when I won't even be able to wear that when it's done. So I'm really glad that I made that choice, and thank you to those of you who had suggested I do that. All right. Now that we're here, we're ready to talk about Stash Bus Spring projects. I know that I've been chatting for a good bit now, so I'm going to make this pretty quick. And so just one more time, a really big thank you to those of you who have participated. And like I said, an even bigger thank you to those of you who have made these prizes possible. My big thanks go to Jennifer from Pairs Well With Knitting, who donated 3 copies of her favorite fingerless mittens patterns. Hannah from Herb Garden Knitwear, who generously donated 3 patterns of the 3 winners' choices for this knit along. To Kara on Instagram as my_naughty hobby, who donated this beautiful skein of this Malabrigo yarn Mecca. This Malabrigo Mecca yarn and the colorway 335 Hannah. This is the most stunning yarn. It's incredibly soft. It is 100% superwash merino wool, and it is stunning. She also donated this stitch marker from the Cat's Whiskers Crochet, and it's a beautiful little flower. Thank you to Kara for these goodies. To Sylvia as Sills_unique_knits, who donated a bunch of different yarns, including these Nimbus yarns in multiple different colors. There's actually a whole box sitting next to me of yarns donated by Sylvia. Thank you so much. To Darlene of British Columbia, Canada, who not only made and donated this beautiful bag, she also included a full sweaters quantity of this Barocco vintage and this stunning teal green colorway. Does it say the color? It's just a number. Or is it vintage jalapeno? A full sweaters quantity of this yarn and the bag. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you to Tita from Yarn for All, who has donated a full sweaters quantity of the winner's choice. And our last minute prize donation from Shayla of Black Pearl Magic, who generously donated one of her amazing clear bags. This is that clear vinyl and a really cute little unicorn pin to go along with it. Thank you so, so much to our donors. And I think with that, we should go ahead and announce the winners. I am going to announce all of the winners on here. I will also announce them all on Instagram. And if your name is on the screen, if you hear me say your name out loud, if you could just go ahead and email me at akanoraknits@gmail.com. The email will be listed below in the description as well. And we can coordinate getting your gifts to you. And just one more time, huge thank you to everyone who has participated. I really appreciate you joining me in this kind of challenge. Okay, I just took some time to go through and randomly generate the winners for Stash Bust Spring. I'm going to read them here off of my phone. There are going to be prize packs that I'm assembling, making sure to kind of curate and cultivate these different themed prize packages based on the prizes I've been setting aside for months now, as well as the donated gifts from today. So if you are receiving a prize pack, know that it is going to be a curated basket of little goods that I am going to be putting together for you. So let's go ahead and read off the winners. I'm going to be reading right off of my phone here to make this easy, starting with Instagram winners. So from the Instagram posts, just using hashtag StashBustSpring and tagging at akanoraknits in your progress photos on Instagram, we have the winner who will be receiving a copy of Jennifer from Parasol with Knitting, her pattern for her favorite fingerless mittens at hearthside.handmade. Congratulations. For a coupon code for one of Hannah from Herb Garden Knitwear's patterns, our winner is at PINNECONNE96. Congratulations to you guys. From the Instagram comments, we have our international winners first. So another recipient of the favorite fingerless mittens patterns is at Quilt Crazy. A recipient of the coupon code for one of Hannah's patterns from Herb Garden Knitwear is at Garn Bowl Stickar. I'll write that out here. Within the US, so receiving a physical prize package, we have at REENEC, as well as at TASHFUL Tashful. Congratulations to you both. And lastly, from YouTube comments, we have our international winners. So receiving the pattern for the favorite fingerless mittens is at Fritzy314. For one of Hannah from Herb Garden Knitwear's patterns, we have at Pia-Bex. And within the US, we have a prize pack for at Alex Girl, as well as for at David Garza 7568. And the winner who will be able to pick out their sweater's quantity of yarn from Tita at Yarn for All, her shop online. Our winner is at Angela Sabota. I will make sure to have all of those listed on the screen there. So if you see your name on the screen, if you are one of our winners, please make sure to email me at akanoraknits@gmail.com. You could put in the subject Stash Bust Spring Winner, and we will get your prizes to you as soon as possible. Big thank you to everyone who participated and made this possible. I could not have done this without you guys. And definitely let me know what all kind of knit along you'd like to see next. I am definitely interested in doing this again, and I promise to be even more organized the next time. with that being said, I think that's all I have to talk to you guys about today. Please keep an eye out for my upcoming summer knitting plans video whenever I get around to it. Otherwise, I think that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, I would so appreciate it if you would go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you subscribe and ring the bell, you will be notified anytime I post a new video, and I post a podcast video just like this one every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you so much for joining me. Big ol' thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, you guys. Bye.